Stalin's Order 227 was savage. Not one step back, but it was nothing compared to Adolf Hitler's. At Stalingrad, Soviet generals were stunned as the Führer forbade his army from breaking out. He wasn't just giving an order, he was handing them 250,000 men in a cage and personally throwing away the key. Late September 1942. The Kremlin, Moscow. The air in Joseph Stalin's cavernous office is thick enough to chew. It's a stale miasma of his papyrusy cigarette smoke, sweat, and the faint, dusty smell of maps that have been pinned, unpinned, and repinned 1,000 times. The room is a pool of shadow, pierced by a single, harsh cone of light from a green-shaded desk lamp. It illuminates a massive table, and on it, the entire war. You are standing in the shadows, just behind General Alexander Vasilevsky, the quiet, meticulous chief of the general staff. His face is pale, almost translucent under the light. Opposite him, General Georgy Zhukov leans forward, his stocky frame rigid, his knuckles white as he grips the back of a chair. And at the head of the table, pacing, is Stalin. He isn't the robust man of steel from the propaganda posters. He's sallow, exhausted, his tunic rumpled. He moves like a caged bear, trailing a cloud of smoke. The tension in this room is the tension of an entire nation on the brink of annihilation. Just weeks before, on July 28th, Stalin had signed the order that now hangs over every soldier, every general, every citizen. Order number 227. It wasn't a complex strategic document. It was a roar of primal fear and rage. Its most famous line echoes in this room, unspoken. Ni shagu nazad, not one step back. It was an order born of pure desperation. The Wehrmacht's Operation Blue had shattered the Soviet southern front. They had crossed the Don. They were driving for the oil of the Caucasus. And now, General Friedrich Paulus's Sixth Army was deep inside the city that bore Stalin's name, Stalingrad. The city was being torn apart, street by street, brick by brick. Order 227 was Stalin's answer. Stand and die, or be shot for retreating. Blocking detachments, penal battalions. It was a monstrous, brutal piece of paper. It was the act of a regime that trusted terror more than patriotism, a regime that would cannibalize its own men to clog the gears of the German war machine. But here, under the lamp, Vasilevsky and Zhukov are not looking at the burning city itself. Their eyes, and now Stalin's, are drawn to the flanks. Vasilevsky's pencil, a simple, sharpened wooden stick, taps the map. It taps north of Stalingrad. It taps south. The sound is a dry, repetitive tick, tick, tick in the silence. Here, Vasilevsky says, his voice low, academic. And here, he isn't pointing at elite SS divisions or Panzer Corps. He's pointing at the Romanian Third Army, the Romanian Fourth Army, the Italian Eighth Army. These were the forces Hitler had used to secure the Sixth Army's flanks as Paulus punched deeper and deeper into the urban meat grinder. The Sixth Army was the tip of the spear, a spear hundreds of kilometers long. And this, Vasilevsky was indicating, was the spear's wooden shaft. And it was rotting. They are overextended. Zhukov growls, stating the obvious. The Führer believes his own proclamations. He thinks the city is everything. Stalin stops pacing. He looks at the map. He, the man who just signed Order 227, the epitome of rigid, brutal, stand-fast ideology, is looking at a plainer nascent, audacious, almost insane plan that is the complete opposite of what his enemy is doing. The Germans, high on their own dogma of no retreat and hold at all costs, were doing exactly what the Soviets had done in 1941 and paid for in millions of dead. They were creating a Kessel cauldron for themselves. They were placing their most powerful army at the end of a long, fragile supply line, protecting its flanks with allies who were under-equipped, overstretched, and had no love for this frozen wasteland. A strange, predatory stillness settles on the room. The desperation is still there, but it's now mingled with something else. A cold, calculating hope. The Soviets, forced by their own leaders' not one step back order, were holding the line in Stalingrad with their fingernails. But their best military minds were now realizing that their enemy was being commanded to do the same thing, but in a position of supreme strategic vulnerability. The plan, which would become Operation Uranus, was beginning to form. It was a plan to let the Sixth Army bleed itself white in the city, while the Red Army gathered vast, secret reserves. It would build 2 new fronts in the empty steppe, and then, in one coordinated, overwhelming blow, it would smash the Romanians, wheel inward, and trap Paulus's entire army. It was a brilliant gamble. But it relied on one unbelievable assumption, that Adolf Hitler, presented with the clear, unfolding disaster, would stubbornly, blindly, refuse to let his army save itself. It was a plan that relied on the enemy's commander being more rigid, more dogmatic, and more brutal to his own men than even Joseph Stalin. They were building a cage. Now, they just had to wait for the tiger to refuse to leave it. November 19th, 1942, 7:20 hours. The Romanian Third Army sector, Kletskaya. You are not in Stalingrad. You are 70 miles to the northwest, huddled in a frozen ditch that barely qualifies as a trench. You are a Romanian conscript. Your rifle is a captured French Lebel, model 1886. Your boots are thin leather, and you stopped feeling your toes an hour ago. For weeks, the only sounds have been the distant, hollow crump of the war in the city and the relentless cutting wind. Then, at 7:20, the wind stops. It is silenced, erased, by a new sound. A sound that is not a sound, but a pressure of physical weight that feels like the sky is tearing in half. Stalin's organ. The Katyusha rockets begin their shriek, a noise like 1,000 banshees. They are joined by the bone-shattering boom of 3,500 Soviet guns and mortars. For 80 minutes, the world is reduced to fire, noise, and the smell of cordite. The very ground, frozen 3 feet deep, vibrates and shatters. This is not a preparatory bombardment. This is an annihilation. Then, the noise moves. Out of the freezing fog and the smoke, dark shapes emerge. They are low, wide, and moving faster than you thought possible. T-34 tanks. Not 1 or 2, not a dozen, hundreds. They are painted white, like ghosts, and they do not stop for your machine gun nests. They drive over them, crushing the frozen earth and the men beneath. Behind them, running, screaming, "Hurrah!" come waves of Soviet infantry in thick quilted Telegreka jackets. This is the northern pincer of Operation Uranus. This is the Soviet 5th Tank Army and 21st Army. And the Romanian 3rd Army, which Vasilevsky's pencil had tapped so dismissively, does not bend. It does not break. It disintegrates. 100 miles to the south, at Gumrak, the 6th Army's central command post. General Friedrich Paulus is a tall, fastidious, and perpetually worried man. His headquarters is a flimsy collection of wooden buildings on the frozen steppe, a small island of German order in a sea of Russian chaos. He has spent the last 2 months feeding his divisions, one by one, into the urban hellscape of Stalingrad. His entire focus, his entire world, has been reduced to 3 objectives: the Red October factory, the Barricadi works, and the Dzerzhinsky tractor plant. The radio operator, a young man with headphones clamped over his fur-lined cap, rips a message from his machine. He doesn't even bother to decode it fully. Herr Generalobust, the Romanians. They report a total breakthrough. They say they are gone. Paulus's face, already pale, turns to ash. Gone? What does gone mean? Tell them to hold the line. It's a local attack. But it isn't. The chatter becomes a flood. Frantic, uncoded messages from the field. Tanks everywhere. HQ overrun. We are fleeing west. Then, the next day, November 20th, the radio traffic from the south goes mad. General Hoth's 4th Panzer Army, or rather, the Romanian 4th Army holding his flank, is also hit. The 51st and 57th Soviet armies, another massive armoured fist, punches straight through. On Paulus's map table, the situation is no longer about capturing city blocks. It's about basic geometry. 2 red arrows, unstoppable, are racing behind him. They are not aiming for Stalingrad. They are aiming for each other. Their target, the town of Kalach na Donu, the crucial bridge over the Don behind the Sixth Army. The Soviet commanders, Generals Vatutin and Yeremenko, are driving their men with ruthless precision. This is not the panicked, clumsy Red Army of 1941. This is a new beast, confident and lethal. November 23rd, 1942, near Kalach. A Soviet tank commander from the 4th Tank Corps peers through his vision slit. The fog is thick, the light failing. He sees dark shapes approaching. More T-34 seconds. He tenses, grabbing his radio mic. Are they Germans in captured armor? A flare goes up. It illuminates a red star on the side of the lead tank. It is the 4th Mechanized Corps. From the southern pincer. The men, realizing what has happened, climb out of their tanks. They run to each other in the snow, embracing, weeping, sharing cigarettes. They have done it. Back at Gumrak, the map is a death sentence. The red arrows have met. The 6th Army 22 divisions, over 250,000 men, the victors of France, the heroes of the Reich surrounded. The Kessel is closed. Paulus's chief of staff, Major General Arthur Schmidt, a man of hard, National Socialist conviction, stares at the map. We must. He hesitates. We must break out. To the southwest. Now, while we still have the fuel. The first, desperate signal is sent from Gumrak to the Wolfslair Hitler's headquarters in East Prussia. It is a signal requesting the one thing Hitler has never granted, freedom of action. Permission to retreat. November 24th, 1942. The Wolfslair, East Prussia. You are a long, long way from the ice. Here, in the damp, concrete and wood bunker complex, the air is warm, stale, and electric with hysteria. You are standing in the back of the Laje Baraka, the conference room. It smells of floor polish, old documents, and Adolf Hitler's simmering vegetarian broth. A large map of the Eastern Front covers the table, but all eyes are on the small red grease pencil circle near the Volga. Kessel, the cauldron. General Kurt Zeitzler, the new, energetic chief of the General Staff, is pleading. His face is ruddy, and he's practically vibrating with frustration. My Führer, I must insist. Paulus's army group is still mobile. They have enough fuel for one breakout attempt. 1. If they strike southwest now, we can form a corridor. They must be allowed to retreat. Hitler looks up, his eyes flat and dead. He places a hand on the map, his fingers spreading, as if to physically hold the 6th Army in place. Retreat? Zeitzler, you are new to your post. We do not ever retreat. The 6th Army is the vanguard of our entire Eastern campaign. To give up Stalingrad is to give up the Volga. To give up the Volga is to give up the Caucasus. It is unacceptable. But my Führer, Zeitzler presses, a desperate, dangerous move. It is not a retreat. It is a tactical withdrawal to save the army. Silence. Hitler's voice doesn't boom. It's a dry, sibilant hiss that cuts through the room. We have been in this position before. The Reichsmarschall has assured me it is not a problem. All eyes turn to Hermann Göring. The head of the Luftwaffe, bloated in his absurd white uniform, his fingers thick with rings, gives a magnanimous, dismissive wave of his hand. The Reichsmarschall? Zeitzler is incredulous. What does this have to? The Luftwaffe will supply the 6th Army, Göring announces, as if offering a box of chocolates. It is a simple matter. A few Junkers 52 seconds. We will fly in what they need. A Luftwaffe liaison officer, looking faint, whispers the numbers. Herr Reichsmarschall, the 6th Army requires a minimum of 500 tons per day, perhaps 750, to fight and eat. I guarantee 500 tons. Göring snaps, silencing the officer. He turns to Hitler, a fawning, toxic smile on his face. My Führer, I, Hermann Göring, personally guarantee the complete and total resupply of the 6th Army by air. It will be our great triumph. A fortress in the east, supplied by German genius. Hitler seizes it. This is the answer he wants. It is not a military answer. It is a fantasy. It allows him to be strong, to not retreat, and to place the burden on his most loyal sycophant. It is settled. Hitler declares. The teletype operator is already clattering away. The order goes out. Führerbefehl, a direct command from the Führer, bypassing all military common sense. The Sixth Army will hold its positions. It is now designated Fortress Stalingrad. Supply will be by air. A breakout is forbidden on pain of death. Meanwhile, at Don Front headquarters, Soviet lines, General Konstantin Rokossovsky, a man who just 2 years prior was in one of Stalin's prisons, pulling out his own fingernails under NKVD torture, stares at his own map. The Kessel is marked. His armies, the 21st, 65th and 24th, are the northern wall of the cage. For 3 days, he and his Stavka representative, Alexander Vasilevsky, have been waiting. They sleep at the map table. Every hour, they expect the call. They expect the roar of engines from the Kessel. They expect Paulus to do the one, singular, logical, militarily necessary thing. Gather his 1,000-plus tanks and his 250,000 desperate men and punch a hole, any hole, in their newly formed, still thin encirclement line. He is not moving, Rokossovsky says. It's not a question. It's a statement of profound confusion. The reconnaissance flights show them digging in, Vasilevsky murmurs. He rubs his eyes, red raw from lack of sleep. They are forming Igel, perimeters. They are staying. The two men look at each other. They, who live under the shadow of Order 227, not one step back, know what a brutal, rigid order looks like. But this is something else. Stalin's order was to stop a rout. It was a desperate, bloody plug. Hitler's order, they realize, is the opposite. It's a command for a functional, elite army to commit suicide. It's a command that forbids survival. He's not letting them go, Rokossovsky says, a slow, dawning comprehension in his voice. He's holding them there for us. Vasilevsky, the quiet architect of Uranus, allows himself a thin, grim smile. He has handed us a gift. Tovarish General. He has handed us the entire Sixth Army. The Soviet generals, stunned by their enemy's dogmatic, suicidal rigidity, realize the nature of the battle has just changed. This is no longer a brilliant maneuver. It is now a simple, brutal act of annihilation. They don't have to chase Paulus. They just have to wait and tighten the noose. Hitler had just become the Red Army's greatest quartermaster, holding his own army in place until the Soviet artillery and the Russian winter could begin their methodical work. Early December 1942. Pitomnik Airfield, inside the Kessel. You are standing ankle-deep in snow, but the ground is black. It's stained with oil, soot, and frozen blood. The temperature is -20 degrees Celsius, and the wind feels like it's made of ground glass. This is Pitomnik, the Sixth Army's main lung, and it is choking. A Junkers 52, the corrugated iron anti-Jew, wallows out of the grey sky. Soviet flak, fired from the very lines your comrades are holding, puffs black flowers around it. You don't look up with hope. You look up with a cold, desperate calculation. The Reichsmarschall's promise has been revealed as a catastrophic, murderous lie. Göring guaranteed 500 tons a day. The Sixth Army, to fight and eat, needs a bare minimum of 750. On the best day of the entire airlift, December 19th, with superhuman effort, the Luftwaffe will manage to fly in 289 tons. On most days, it is 80 tons, 250 tons. On Christmas Day, it will be 20. The planes themselves are the wrong kind. They aren't dedicated cargo haulers. They are repurposed Ju-52 seconds, Heinkel 111 bombers, even ancient Ju-86 seconds. They land under artillery fire. They are strafed on the ground by Yakovlev and Lavochkin fighters. They crash, burn, and explode, creating a junkyard of shattered aluminum at the end of the runway. What they bring is a cruel joke. "We need anti-tank shells and bread," a quartermaster screams, prying open a crate. He's met with 5,000 right boots, or a case of pepper, or 4 tons of Luftwaffe propaganda leaflets. The Sixth Army is not being supplied. It is being mocked. And the cost of this fantasy is paid by the men. The daily ration is cut to 100 grams of bread a slice thinner than your hand, made mostly of sawdust. The horses, 60,000 of them, are the first to be eaten. Then the dogs, then the rats. The word Kessel Fleisch cauldron, meat muttered in the frozen, lice-infested cellars. The average lancer is now a walking skeleton, wrapped in rags, his uniform stiff with filth. He has no fuel for his tanks, no grenades for the enemy, and only a handful of bullets. His only duty, per the Führer, is to sit here and die. December 12th, 1942, outside the Kessel. But there is one last hope. It has a name, Field Marshal Erich von Manstein. The Wehrmacht's most brilliant strategist has been called in to fix the unfixable. He has scraped together a relief force from all over the shattered southern front. Operation Winter Storm, Wintergewitter. It is a desperate armoured punch, spearheaded by General Hoth's LWII Panzer Corps. From his headquarters, Manstein gives the order. His panzers, including new Tiger tanks, lurch forward and smash into the Soviet 51st Army. For a moment, the old blitzkrieg magic seems to work. The Germans tear a hole. They advance. 10 miles. 20 miles. 30. Inside the Kessel, Paulus and his staff at Gumrak track the advance on their map. The red line of Manstein's attack is a creeping lifeline. In Moscow, Stalin is furious. He sees the danger. He calls his man on the new Stalingrad front, General Rodion Malinovsky, the 2nd Guards Army. Take it, Stalin commands. You will stop Hoth. You will not let them reach the Kessel. I don't care what it costs. December 19th, 1942. The Mishkova River. You are with Manstein's vanguard. It is 30 miles 48 kilometers from the edge of the Kessel. It is so close that at night you can see the red arcs of the artillery fire from Fortress Stalingrad. You can see the faint flares. Your comrades are right there. Manstein sends the most critical radio message of the battle. He sends it directly to Paulus. The order is simple. Code word. Thunderclap. Thunderclap is the other half of the plan. It is the order for Paulus to take his remaining tanks, his remaining fuel, and his 200,000 men and punch out to meet Manstein. It is the last chance. In his bunker, Paulus, the obedient, fatalistic officer, is paralyzed. He looks at his fuel gauges. He looks at his starving men. He radios the Wolfschanze. My Führer, Manstein orders thunderclap. But I only have fuel to go 15 miles, not 30, and I cannot hold Stalingrad and break out. What is your command? The reply comes back. It is the voice of Adolf Hitler, a man in a warm bunker 1,000 miles away, looking at a map that no longer reflects reality. The 6th Army holds. Fortress Stalingrad will not be abandoned. Paulus, a man caught between his field marshal and his Führer, makes his choice. He chooses obedience. He radios Manstein. Cannot break out. The Führer's order stands. Manstein is apoplectic. He knows this is the end. At that exact moment, Malinovsky's 2nd Guards Army, fresh, fully supplied, and burning with hatred, slams into Manstein's exposed flank. The relief attempt stalls, shudders, and begins to bleed. The last flicker of hope dies on the banks of the Mishkova. The Soviet generals, watching this drama of German self-immolation, are no longer stunned. They are pitiless. Hitler has not just handed them the 6th Army. He has personally, deliberately executed its only rescue. January 8th, 1943. A frozen dugout near Voroponovo, outside the Kessel. You are with General Konstantin Rokossovsky. He is a tall, imposing man, his face scarred by his time in the Gulag, but his eyes are clear and sharp. He is reviewing the final plan. Operation Koltso. Operation Ring. It is not a subtle plan. It is a bludgeon, a sledgehammer. The Kessel has been shrunk, starved, and frozen, but its 200,000-man garrison, though spectral, is still armed. Rokossovsky has assembled 7 armies, over 218,000 fresh troops, and 7,000 guns and rocket launchers, to finally crush it. But first, a formality. A Soviet staff car, flying a white flag, drives under truce to the German lines. It carries an ultimatum, signed by Rokossovsky and his artillery chief, General Voronov. The terms are simple. We guarantee all officers and men who cease resistance their lives, safety, and, after the end of the war, their return to Germany, all wounded, sick, and frostbitten will be rendered medical aid. Inside the Kessel, Gumrak. The radio message is handed to General Paulus. He reads it. His chief of staff, the unbending Arthur Schmidt, snatches it and reads it aloud with contempt. Guarantees. Medical aid. Schmidt scoffs. It is a trick. Soviet propaganda. To surrender is to be sent to Siberia and shot. But Herr General, a junior officer, gaunt, his face covered in frostbite sores, whispers, "Our men are. They are eating their comrades. There is nothing. We have no ammunition. We have our orders." Schmidt barks. "We have our duty to the Führer. German soldiers do not surrender, and a German field marshal has never been taken alive." Paulus, the fatalist, the obedient servant, looks at the radio transmitter. He has to get permission to reject the offer. He transmits the Soviet ultimatum to the Wolfschanze. The reply from Hitler is immediate and insane. Surrender is forbidden. The 6th Army will hold to the last man and the last bullet. By their heroic perseverance, they will make an unforgettable contribution to the salvation of the Western world. Paulus, with trembling hands, drafts the reply to Rokossovsky. Offer of surrender rejected. Rokossovsky gets the message. He lights a cigarette. He feels no anger. He feels only a cold, grim pity. "So be it," he says to Voronov. "Warm up the artillery." January 10th, 1943, 8-5 hours. The western perimeter. You are a lancer in a trench near Marinovka. You are no longer a soldier. You are a dying animal. You are 70 pounds. Your uniform is a frozen block of rags, lice, and excrement. You have typhus. You have dysentery. You are clutching a rifle with no ammunition. At 8:05, you hear the sound. It is the sound from November, but it is not 3,500 guns. It is 7,000 guns, mortars, and Katyusha batteries, all firing at once. It is not a bombardment. It is the end of the world. For 55 minutes, the sky is ripped apart. The shells, one after another, hit with the speed and monotony of a machine gun. They don't just explode. They liquefy the frozen earth, vaporizing men, shattering bunkers, and turning the 6th Army's entire western defense line into a churning, red-black sea of shrapnel and snow. Then, the T-34 seconds appear. They are not fighting. They are clearing. They roll over the trenches, firing their cannons at point-blank range into the holes where the German strongpoints are supposed to be. Behind them, the Red Army infantry advances, not even running, just walking, wrapped in their white camouflage cloaks. There is no resistance. The 6th Army does not fight. It evaporates. Men throw their hands up. They run towards the Soviet tanks, begging for capture. They are shot. They fall on their knees. They are ignored. The remaining airfields, Pitomnik and then Gumrak, are overrun. The last, pathetic link to the outside world is cut. The Kessel is no longer a circle. It is a collapsing pocket, splitting in two, being consumed. Soviet commanders, the very men who had been stunned by Hitler's order, are now stunned by what they see. They find German aid stations that are not hospitals, but charnel houses, rooms stacked to the ceiling with frozen, yellow-grey corpses, left like firewood. They find prisoners who do not ask for mercy, but for a single crust of bread, which they wolf down before dying of shock. The Soviet soldiers, hardened by 2 years of German brutality, are visibly shaken. What kind of leader, one is heard to mutter to his commissar, does this to his own men? They realize the truth. Stalin's "not one step back" was the act of a brutal tyrant. Hitler's "no retreat," they now see, was the act of a nihilistic madman. One was trying to save his state. The other was demanding a sacrifice to his ego. January 31st, 1943. 7 hours. The Univermag department store, central Stalingrad. You are in a basement. It is not a bunker. It is a dank, sprawling cellar, filled with the detritus of a dead retail business, broken mannequins, piles of soggy ledgers, and overturned shelves. The air is a foul cocktail of human waste, disinfectant, and the gangrenous stench of the wounded who lie in the adjoining rooms. This is the final headquarters of Fortress Stalingrad. Above your head, you can hear it, not artillery, not bombs. You hear the scrape of rubble being moved. You hear individual rifle shots. You hear the clank, clank, clank of T-34 treads, not a mile away, but on the street above. In a small partitioned room, General Oberst Friedrich Paulus is lying on a simple iron cot. He has not changed his uniform in days. He is a ghost, his face a waxy grey mask, his eyes hollow. He is suffering from severe dysentery. His chief of staff, Arthur Schmidt, still bristles with a futile, fanatical energy, but Paulus is simply done. A radio operator, hunched over his flickering machine, perks up. A final message is coming through from the Wolfschanze. It's weak, full of static, but it's not an order to break out. It's not a promise of rescue. It's a promotion. The operator reads it aloud, his voice cracking with disbelief. Herr Generaloberst, the Führer, in recognition of the Sixth Army's heroic struggle, has promoted you to the rank of Generalfeldmarschall. The men in the cellar look at each other. They understand exactly what this means. This is not an honor. It is a death sentence. It is a command wrapped in velvet. No German field marshal, in the entire history of the Reich, had ever been taken alive. No field marshal had ever surrendered. Hitler, in his damp bunker in East Prussia, was not sending help. He was sending a poisoned chalice. He was sending a clear, unspoken order. Shoot yourself. Die at your post. Do not disgrace me. Paulus, the man who had followed every order, the man who had condemned 250,000 of his own men to this hell out of pure, pathological obedience, has finally reached his limit. He looks at his pistol, lying on the small table. He looks at the faces of his staff. He makes his final, and first, act of defiance. He lays his head back down on the cot. He will not do it. He will not give Hitler the heroic myth he craves. The sun rises. The sounds upstairs become clearer. Shouting. In Russian, a junior officer runs in. Herr Feldmarschall, they are here. The door to the cellar opens. It is not a high-ranking general. It is not a commissar. It is a young, mud-stained Red Army lieutenant, Fyodor Ilchenko, and a handful of submachine gunners from the 38th Motorized Rifle Brigade. They are as stunned as the Germans are. They were just clearing a building. They had no idea they were walking into the brain of the entire Sixth Army. Through a translator, the Soviet lieutenant asks, "Who is in command here?" Paulus's adjutant, Colonel Wilhelm Adam, steps forward. Generalfeldmarschall Paulus, he wishes to speak to your commanding officer. The news travels up the Soviet chain of command like a shockwave. General Rokossovsky, the man who had offered them honorable terms, is notified. He cannot believe it. This is the end? Not a Wagnerian Gotterdämmerung, not a final suicidal charge, but a quiet, pathetic capitulation in a dark basement? The Soviet generals, the men of Stavka, are overjoyed, but they are also baffled. They had waged this campaign based on the assumption of their enemy's fanatical, suicidal ideology. And they were right. Hitler's no-retreat order was the single greatest strategic gift the Red Army had ever received. Stalin's Order 227 had been brutal, a necessary evil in their eyes to stop a rout. But Hitler's order was a deliberate trap for his own men. He had handed them an entire army, held it in place for them for 2 months, and then, at the end, demanded his commander kill himself rather than admit defeat. The Soviet commanders didn't just win at Stalingrad, they were given the victory by the very man they were fighting. On February 2nd, the last northern pocket of resistance, under General Strecker, finally surrenders. The battle is over. Of the 250,000 men trapped in the Kessel, 91,000 are taken prisoner. The rest are dead. The gift Hitler had given them was complete.